Chapter 2 in the book deals with technology and communication. So in this chapter we're really going to focus on what is technology. Technology is a word that is commonly used. It's thrown around in a lot of different ways, but it also has a root meaning that many of us are unfamiliar with in a lot of different applications in a lot of different areas. So that's what we're going to focus on in this particular chapter. So in trying to understand technology, we need to see where it lies in this continuum of the variety of technologies that are developed and how they're applied in our society. So the four areas that we're going to look at are science, engineering, technology, and industry. These are all common words in our society, but yet they have distinct definitions and distinct meanings. Even though at times they may blend from one to the other, there is a difference. And it's important as majors in a university and technology literate students that you understand the difference between these four different areas. So let's start with science. What is science? All students take a variety of science classes in their K-12 education. We spend a lot of time looking at a lot of different science. So what is it? What is the actual meaning of science? Well, in a very short and broad definition, we can simply say that science is the study of the physical world. So a scientist is somebody who studies the physical world and all the different principles of the world, the laws, the physics, what makes up the world, and what are the laws and principles that are comprised of those. Then moving into what is engineering. Engineering is a buzzword now in the 21st century. It originally had a lot of different meanings, and originally we have two different meanings from an engineer. One, what we commonly think of as an engineer, someone who develops things or engineers something. Then you also have the trained engineer, and so even from the get-go we had two different definitions for an engineer. But now today it means a lot of different things. There's a big push today to encourage engineering as a career field, and it's a great career field, and we need good engineers in our culture and our society to solve problems. But it's also a word that is abused in many ways, in that it's used in a lot of different things. In many cases, a job title, it may just put engineering on a job title when in fact they're not necessarily an engineer at all. So a janitorial engineer or might be a janitor, but we put engineering on it to make it sound a little more professional, and when that's not really the case. But at its core, engineering is the design of complex products and systems. So engineers are the ones who design products, who design and develop products or systems, and that's what they really focus on. So to compare science to engineering, the two are certainly related, but a scientist is going to study the physical world and develop new principles, new properties, new materials, those types of things, where an engineer is going to take those scientific principles and mathematic principles and apply them to design a product or to design a system. So then bringing in what is technology? Well, technology then is the byproduct of engineering. So again, the scientist is the one who finds a scientific fact or principle or law. The engineering takes that fact or principle and law and uses it to actually design a product or a system. And then the product that they actually design, what they actually create, is technology. So technology is what is created by the engineering process. So to look at a definition for technology, we can say that it's a constantly evolving body of knowledge that deals with the technical way in which we change the world to meet our needs and wants. Which is kind of a long definition there, but it's the way that we apply knowledge to change the world and to meet our needs and wants. A very a short definition and a good definition to go off is simply it's the practical application of scientific knowledge. So technology again are the products that are developed through the engineering process that applies the scientific knowledge. And then lastly we have our fourth area, and that is industry. And industry is the arena that's an organization that uses technology to produce goods and services. So once an engineer develops a product or a system and then the products become actual goods that are out in our society, industry uses those goods or the technologies to produce goods and services. So going back to our continuum here, we have all four of them along a line here, and it's not to say that one is more important than the other. Each have their place in our society, but they are certainly different, and it's important to understand those differences that are out there. One of the common questions we may say is, how long has technology been around? So often we hear technology and we think computers, electronics, those types of things. And today that's typically what that's how we talk about those types of devices. They're called technology. But does that mean that technology has only been around since the electronic devices have been developed? Certainly not. Technology has been around forever. Since the beginning of mankind, man has always been using different scientific principles to create and use technology. So, for example, the wheel is a form of technology, or even a stick and a rock tied together to be used as a hammer is a form of technology. So even in the early days of man, where we have man understanding that a rock is hard, a basic scientific principle, if you will, and if I tie it to a stick, I can actually get some increased leverage out of this this tool, this hammer. Again, that leverage being a scientific principle. When I tie them together, I can actually use it to pound something into a ground. I can use it to pound a nail or a wood stake. And so the hammer itself as a product is a technology that has applied the scientific principles. So technology has been around forever, since the beginning of mankind. At the same time, change is accelerating, and so is the amount of knowledge with it. And so technology is impacted by this in a variety of ways. When we think about knowledge being information, the amount of knowledge doubles every 5 years. And in fact, this is an old statistic that was commonly used just prior to the use of the internet and the explosion of the internet, if you will. But at that time, the amount of knowledge doubled every 5 years. For example, Moore's Law. In the electronics world, we'll talk more about Moore's Law as we get into Section 5 in electronic communication. But Moore's Law was developed back in the 1960s and by Mr. Moore, and he developed the law that said the number of transistors placed on a circuit doubles every 2 years. And again, this is brief and introductory, but transistors are related to the processing power of a circuit board, or the processing power, let's say, of an electronic device such as a computer or a cell phone. And so Moore's Law says that the number of transistors are going to double every 2 years, meaning that the processing power are going to double every 2 years. So we would say that it's going to grow exponentially. So we could take and we can draw a line, a straight line going up at 45 degrees to demonstrate the processing power increase. And again, this was developed back in the 1960s, and it has actually stayed consistent for the last 5 decades, meaning that Moore's Law still applies, and that every 2 years we are doubling our processing power, or we are doubling our memory, or we are doubling our storage on our electronic devices. And actually, it's actually narrowed down from 2 years now. There's argument and theory that it's actually now at 18 months. And so it's growing even a little bit faster. But that's powerful to think that just as powerful as our computers are today, 2 years from now they're going to be double that, and double that, and double that. We can look at this as evident on the information on the web as well. And the information on the web doubles every year. And this is certainly, actually probably even more than that now with the explosion of Web 2.0 technologies, which we'll talk about later in the semester. But all the variety of ways that we communicate on the web, such as Facebook and YouTube and those types of things, everything that is put up on the web is a piece of information out there that is communicating something. And so it is doubling every year. So the massive amount of information we find on the web today, a year from now there's going to be twice as much. and it's going to continue to grow exponentially as more and more users get on the internet, as more and more countries that aren't on the internet get on the internet, as developed countries start tapping into the internet. It's going to continue to grow and grow. So we certainly have technology and change, and we look at this in three different areas, or three different eras. Our first era was the agriculture era, and in this case the majority of people were farmers. Okay, when you think about the early days of man, that the majority of the people were farmers. And why were they farmers? Well, they had to be farmers because they had to produce their own food to survive and live. And so it was more of a survival means in order to produce food for yourself. Well, the Industrial Revolution that happened in the middle of the 1800s began to change this. And so our society moved from a farmer-based society to more of a labor-based society. And in this case, then, we had technology that was being developed, and we had technology that could produce more food. And so it wasn't a necessity that every individual person had to basically take control of their own food development. Now, because we had mass production beginning to happen, other people could go work in a variety of different industries. And so we had the explosion of factories and industry that was all being developed from the mid-1800s to the middle of the 1900s. Well, then the 1950s brought about a different era, and that being the information age. And in this case, we transitioned from a labor society to more of a clerk society. That's not to mean that there certainly aren't people today that continue to work in industry, and that industry is a big arena, but yet there are more jobs out there that deal with information transfer than industrial-based jobs. And that's what we mean by the information age. And obviously at this time we had the development of the computer. A few decades later we had the development of the internet, and then in the 1990s we had the explosion of the internet, which has changed our jobs, the way we communicate, a variety of things out there. But so many of the positions out there deal with the information age. My position as a teacher would be under this category as a clerk, meaning my job is to share information. To educate is a process of sharing information. So technology and communication are certainly related. Technology is a field that oftentimes is misunderstood, and so it's important to know that root meaning of technology, and that technology has been around forever. Electronic communication or electronic devices are a type of technology that are certainly heavily used today, but there are other types of technology out there. And the other component to understand the relationship between science, engineering, technology, and industry.